Good morning. It's 8:30, so we're gonna get started. Appreciate you all joining us this morning to hear from the utilities unit. They've got some great information to share with you. We've got this QR code for your PDHs up on the screen. We'll show it again at the end in case you don't have a chance to get that. But I'm not gonna talk anymore. I'm gonna turn it over to Keith so he can share what you're really here to hear. Look at that, here to hear. All right.
You got us all on one deck?
I do.
Awesome.
I do. All right. You're all set.
All right. Thanks, Wendy. All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Wendy. Hope you all are having a great pre-con workshop. This is day number 2. And I have been to all of the pre-con workshops, and this is the first time that utilities have been mentioned on day 1 and day 2. So for all of our utility folks in here, I take that as double job security or double opportunity for improvement, or however you want to look at it. But no, excited to be here. So up here on the slide, it says updates from the utilities unit. Just like to share a little on that. Here on the floor with me, we have our folks from utilities unit, and I think Adam's here as well from division. But really, the content in this presentation is everyone on a DOT utility team, both division and central, had their hands on this, right? We're all working together as a team. We all talk daily, things that we're seeing in the field on projects, recommendations for improving policies, whatever it may be. We're all sharing those ideas and working together, pulling in the same direction to try to make utilities more efficient. So I'm Keith Gary, the State Utilities Manager. I've been with the department as an employee for about 11 months now. So next month will be my 1-year anniversary. My first 30 years prior to joining DOT, I was with a private consultant working for numerous DOTs, performing utility coordination, utility design, utility CEI, subsurface utility engineering on all kinds of projects. Not all of them highway. A lot of time, we worked on aviation projects, rail projects, port projects, and more. So got to see some pretty cool things and meet some great people, and really happy to be here. So yesterday during our day 1 session, we heard Matt Clark talk about a couple things mentioned throughout the day. He talked about some emphasis from utilities, the chief's office include good cost estimates, right? So, good fiscal responsibility, for our program. So we're going to, talk on that some. We also talked about quality, right? So delivering projects, high quality projects, which help us to reduce risk, reduce liability, and hence, it's good for fiscal responsibility. And he also talked about 3D delivery. So all of our units working together, and our consultant team members working together to develop products and deliverables that are 3D, which help to reduce risk, liability, and enhance efficiency. So everything that the utilities unit is doing, I'm proud to say, is working in those 3 directions. Everyone's been, like I mentioned, working very hard together, division, central. And so we put some slides together to kind of share with you some things that we're working on, some initiatives. And I think First up, we're going to talk about the PDN. Right, so everyone was in the room. Who was here yesterday for day one? Okay, excellent. So you all got a sneak peek at the new and improved PDN. It's been out in the street for a couple years now. We've had an opportunity to kick the tires with it. So we're working through some updates, modifications, how to make it better. Where are some things that we can add that probably should have been in there from the beginning, things to that nature. So I think Mr. Hemphill is going to share some thoughts and updates with us on the PDN. Good morning, Bo. Bo is our Eastern Region Utility Manager. He oversees utility engineering and coordination for our Eastern Region, North Carolina. So, all right, Mr. Bo.
I have to run the machine.
Where's the toggle down?
All right. Morning. The new PDN, it's pretty daunting looking. There's a couple extra boxes compared to last year. The main thing to take out of it is stage one is now entirely the feasibility study period of this process. Our project teams get involved at the beginning of stage two. Stage three will be final plans. So at the end of this, we want plans pretty final. I'll explain more what that means for you guys doing UBOs and things like that. And the last part is preparation of plans, specs, and estimates. So really finalizing the plans and turning them in. So not a lot changed in stage one. Because of the way that the entire project has been pushed into stage two, most of the work in the project is being done during stage two. We used to have a section in stage one that we would try to put together a pretty comprehensive inventory of utilities and analysis of what could go wrong. That doesn't make as much sense now. There's more time in stage two to do that. So if you notice, there's two of those gray utility boxes in stage one. The first one is that feasibility studies estimate that Barry Whitaker typically handles those, getting them done. The second box is 1UT2 down at the bottom, near the bottom. If you identify things in stage one that are really going to cause you problems, pipelines, gas pipelines, oil pipelines, transmission lines, if you happen to notice a slick or slack unit, if you happen to notice four manhole covers labeled AT&T sitting side by side in the road, this is a good time to start looking into those and make contact with those utilities. Find out what you need to do to try to avoid them or to get them moving earlier. We're calling those the critical utilities. And so that second part isn't necessarily scope. The utilities people should look at the project and decide whether they need to scope that. And I'm not sure how it gets scoped because the team's not put together. So we'll cross all of the specifics of how you do this whenever we get to it. But we've got contracts. We can pull in a consultant. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same consultant that's on the rest of the team. Stage two. Most stuff happens in stage two. So it's called environmental and right-of-way plans. The output of this will be the environmental plans and the right-of-way plans. Stage two used to end with the CFI, and right-of-way was in stage three. So now it's been tied up more neatly, and it goes through right-of-way at the end of this stage. Because they put a little more time in here, and everyone agreed that there would be a little extra time so that we could do utilities more right. Some of the times in here have been changed in what we do. Yesterday, Chris Smitherman mentioned that we didn't get involved in utilities till the end. When I started in utilities 19 years ago, we got involved at right-of-way. And so that meant there were a lot of Z claims. Everything was done at the last minute. Then they had an initiative about 5 years later. They called it early involvement, which is really normal involvement now, where we started at 25%. last edition of the PDN was pushing that forward because they weren't giving you, we were being told by the legislature, you've got 3 years to do a project from beginning to end, document everything. The only way to do that was to try to push the utilities as far forward as you could. So now we've got some agreement to add a little extra time. So this stage 2 is sort of divided into 2 parts. Coming out of that first part is the design recommendation plan set. Is that it? The RPS. Yeah, 25% plan. Two hydro. So there is a utility box up there. In that box, you should be making some early contacts with the utilities. Just let them know there's a project going on. Start getting them involved, hiring firms, so that when you get to the second part of that, Hydro will have plans, and you can have the kickoff meeting and really get engaged and go full throttle. Toward the end of this, there's a box, and it's a bright blue box on the second row. Oh, no, it's a light blue box on the third row. And it's right-of-way, utility, and permitting strategy. That's 2 PM2. We're excited about this one in utilities. We live, eat, and breathe utilities. We're going to get PMU, or the project manager, not necessarily PMU. We got other methods of running these projects. We'll hold a meeting to discuss the utilities, the permitting, and right-of-way, determine whether we need to be staging projects, how relocations should be scheduled, what our anticipated schedules are. That's a good time to set the, as Michael Terzi calls it, the UR Bob, utility relocations by others begins. I like UR Bob better. And also you can discuss your pavement management to make sure that matches with your right-of-way schedule. That's not a pleasant thing to discover 2 weeks before turn-in, that you had opposite ideas about how to stage the project. And also you can discuss maybe erosion control at that point. Stage 3, final plans, and that's pretty much nearly final plans. All your plans should be complete. Maybe an I to dot or a T to cross, but your plans should be complete and ready. Some of the utility construction folks may say, why do I need my plans ready already? We're a ways from let. Well, there are reasons we need your plans. There's permitting. There are a lot of reasons internally that we need those plans earlier. Review, coordination with other groups. So we need to complete those plans earlier and not wait so late on UC plans. UBO relocations will start during this stage. So you'll get your authorizations done, and ideally some right-of-ways acquired. They've got the priority parcels, and you'll be able to begin your utility relocations. They will continue into stage 4 while we are preparing the PS&E. UBOs pretty much stay active because they're still being constructed. So there's tweaks to make to the plans, there's tweaks to make to the special provisions. But those plans were almost done in stage 3. There'd just be some minor things to do during this stage. Just want to let you know on the special provisions, we're going to come up with some guidance on UC special provisions and what we want to see in UC special provisions. Just want to let you know there's going to be increased scrutiny of the UC special provisions. Issues are making sure we have contract language good. So we'll be looking less at the technical content of them and more at the contractual nature of those UC special provisions. Making sure that we don't give contractual authority to our utilities over our contractor. We don't want to do that. That disadvantages DOT. So we'll provide guidance and look more at that and at format. Utility environmental permitting. We're trying to push some uniformity in utility environmental permitting and make sure that everybody looks at this issue. And we've had some problems with some of the projects recently. No, I won't go into details, but we just want to make sure that we're getting good plans, that they're ready up front, that we're not missing any items. So we just want to remind everyone of that. Utility environmental permit drawings are needed if the proposed utilities impact wetlands or other environmental features. So the utility environmental plans cover what's outside of what Hydro is permitting. So you look at your impacts, and then you look at the Hydro plans and permit the part outside of what Hydro is permitting. Environmental permitting needs to encompass all utility needs, even off the project limits. If a utility is moving but for the project, then that impact's expected by the agencies to be permitted as part of the project impacts because we caused it. If we don't build this project, they don't have that impact. So they want to know the entire scope of impacts when they're permitting a project. And if you really had to work hard and negotiate every inch of impact you had on your project, and then they discover that some utilities hitting some critical area that you didn't tell them about, it might be a tough conversation at that point to continue your project. We want to identify the utility permitting needs early. So that's with the 2 PM 2, there's a chance there to discuss, to figure out exactly what you're going to be impacting. When you're going through your plans, I recommend that you take your utilities working coordination plans and that you just go through from start to finish. Anytime any line crosses a wetland, a stream, you need to be able to explain what the impact is and draw it out, or explain why there's no impact. Part of this turn-in is a narrative, and that narrative gives us a chance to show what we did to minimize impacts, which is important to the agencies, that we minimize the impacts. So we point out there's no impact because we HDD'd under that stream. Keith? Oh, one more thing. Permits. Don't ever just say permit. Permits have an adjective in front of them. There's environmental permits, there's erosion control and sedimentation permits, there's water permits, there's sewer permits. Somebody else can probably think of another one. There's encroachment permits, Larry, right? So don't ever just say permits. You're going to cause a lot of confusion.
Good job, Bo. So to recap on the new PDN, right? Some high-level changes, and we're excited by them. You know, as Bo mentioned, it doesn't take much to get utilities excited. You know, we like every little thing we can get in our favor, we're all for it. But you know, stage 2, right? So if you look at our current public-facing, the PDN and the script, kickoff meeting starts. We're requesting PUEs after the kickoff meeting, right? This is a pretty big change right here, where the PUEs will be requested after hydraulic plans are available, okay? And before we go to field inspection, and we're going to right-of-way in stage 2. So stage 2 just got really long, right? So yesterday there was a lot of talk about the Microsoft project schedule. You know, the tweaks are being made to that as well. So those additional milestones will be programmed into stage 2, you know, to account for all these activities. And then rolling into stage 3, right, from a utility perspective, in the beginning part of stage 3 is right away is coming to a conclusion, right? We're getting UBOs, UR Bob started, right? Where previously that was kind of pushed out in the stage 4. So, you know, a lot happening. You know, there again, it seems like it's compressed, but when you go to look at it, you know, the columns are getting longer to add more schedule. And you know, why are we doing that? You know, the chief's office was, you know, very adamant. You know, we are going to do better about putting out quality products and projects. So making sure that we have time built in to our schedules to accommodate what is needed for right-of-way, utilities, hydro structures, roadway, right-of-way, and the whole gamut, right? And then, getting that all captured, in the PDN for all of us to work with. So good stuff with the PDN, and we wanted to touch on environmental permitting because that's something that has come up a lot here as of late. We're missing the opportunity or we're missing the identification of utilities that should be permitted, so we're kind of scrambling at the end. So we are excited about that new stage, or the new activity in stage 2, where all the camps get together, we huddle up and look for, where do we need to permit, whether it's environmental, roadway, any long lead permits, things of that nature. So good things coming out of the PDN. So the next portion of our discussion is about the utility construction request form. So who here has had the opportunity to use the new UCR form? Anybody? All right, we got a couple. And I bet it's well received by everyone that you're handing it off to. So we talked a little earlier about risk, right, and quality, and making sure we're taking the right steps. Previously, when a municipality or a utility company wanted to be in our contract, right, where we perform design and construction services, they would submit a very general little note on their letterhead saying, hey, NCDOT, please put my utility in your project, right? And that's pretty much the extent of it. As probably many of you know, there has been a tremendous amount of challenges over the years with utility relocation designs not being performed in the same CAD platform that we're using, right? We've transitioned to ORD now, right? Even when we were straight up MicroStation, a lot of times these smaller firms that work for these rural municipalities, they're using AutoCAD, and there can be lots of dangers with translating or converting AutoCAD to MicroStation. So we were having all kinds of problems with that. We were having issues with having, I guess, hard discussions with utility companies a little too late in the game, right? We're talking about our provisions and our contract agreements and our language and terms, and we're having those conversations like at PSNE or the day before we're trying to let a project, and then they have questions, and then we're getting legals involved, and it's just impacting our delivery. So one of the ideas with this construction request form is the owner is indicating that they have reviewed all of our current provisions, the construction agreements, all of our documents, and they do agree to move forward with those. If they have any questions, let's talk about it at the onset of a project, not at the end when we're trying to deliver. There's also some better definition here about who is going to be performing the relocation design services. As I mentioned, the municipalities oftentimes like to use their local favorites, but they don't always work in MicroStation or Bentley. So this gets very descriptive about what that firm is expected to do for us. And we make sure the utility company and their firm see this and understand what is expected. And it describes, in no uncertain terms, what we will not accept, right? Converted files, things of that nature. So there's time for the utility company to make a decision on what they want to do. Another option that we put in here, we have no problem. We recognize that some of these smaller companies know the municipal systems very well. They've been working in them forever, and they're subject matter experts. We recognize that, and we are all for those firms staying involved from a QA, QC perspective. But let our design teams perform the design work. Working with our plans that we're accustomed to, working in the formats we're accustomed to, but still that other firm can stay on for QC reviews of from a system perspective. And then discussion about is there going to be betterment, things of that nature, kind of laying it out in here. There's also some language in here, by signing on the bottom line here, you agree to provide all available information, system maps, CCTV information, as-built, copies of permits or whatever they may have on file that would help us in developing a design for the project. So this is up on our utilities unit information website. You can pull this down. It's been in use for about a month now. Also up on our webpage is a memorandum that accompanies this. It's just a letter that can be provided to the utility companies along with this, and it helps describe, what is the purpose of this? Why did we make this change? What options do they have? How does this benefit them as well, right? And so it's risk management really for both sides. All right, so we're going to move into the next chapter of our presentation here. Mr. Adam Pressler is going to give us a presentation on, how many folks have seen Adam's presentation already or heard about it, the tool that he has worked? All right, so y'all don't shout out the answers and don't load up Slido with all the right answers, right? But no, this is an awesome tool that Adam worked to put together, and he's been sharing this across DOT. It's been embraced by many, and but yeah, I'm going to let you do your thing here and talk about it. Yes, sir.
All right, I'm Adam Pressler. I'm the senior, well, no longer a senior, assistant division utility engineer in Division 10. Appreciate it. So yeah, utility construction agreement forecasting. For those that don't know, this agreement is mainly DOT, but it's a lot of work on our end. And to Bo's point, why we need agreements so far or your plans so far on the front end is part of the agreement forecasting. So like Keith said, I developed this probably about a year ago. I submitted it through the CLEAR program and got an award, and thankful to the value management unit and utilities unit for seeing value and putting resources into developing this. So first thing we're going to go over is just the many hurdles that you have. The first one you'll see there is just your deadline for your agreement exhibits, which is your agreement plans that Bo is referring to. There's no set standard that we have that when we need to receive them. We just have to work backwards from council dates that are provided by municipalities. So anytime you have to go to council, it's not just they get it, they sign it, and send it back. There's a huge time frame in there, and what we found in Division 10 is that it could range from months to weeks. So the first part there will be your council cutoff period, and that's just how far in advance they have to receive the agreement plans to get that on the agenda for a given date. And you can see, like in Division 10, we have Charlotte Water. They have 50 days, and you can see the other companies there. That's just 4 of them, or municipalities, and the wide range of days that you would have to account for. And then once you figure out your council cutoff, you have to figure out what meeting you're going to hit. And again, that will vary based off which owner you have, varying from second and fourth Mondays, and then you see City of Concord that has second Thursdays every month. So if you mess up on your forecasting or your planning and you miss that Thursday of that month, you've delayed your whole process a month just to get that UCA completed in time. And then your municipality approval time, which is, like I said, they're not just going to sign it and send it back to you. They got to get, 3 or 4 weeks of approvals and have legal review it. And, Charlotte Water will be the first to tell you it'll take about 50 days or 3 months to get it to you. So obviously we need to account for that, because in the new year, PS&E came up and they want everything to be fully executed. We're shooting for, I believe they accept partially execution. So we're shooting for fully executed, but partial execution at the minimum. And like I said, if you have a DDRL, Division Design Raleigh Let, then this will be, could add 3 months to your timeline that you did not account for. So as you can see, if you take all these hurdles and just try to do it for one singular project, it's going to, it may take you 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and if it doesn't line up right, you're going to have to run it all over again. And it just takes up time. And often what we found in Division 10 is that we did this a little too late. at some points. So we had to delay one project, which is why we ended up making this. So after that, we wanted to determine some type of goals, because if we tried to program something like the spreadsheet that we have, we wanted to make it simple, wanted to make it user-friendly, and really minimize the time that it takes for someone to use it. So we simplified everything to 3 inputs. One of them is just an optional title block, because what we've been doing is taking screenshots and providing them to the project manager. You'll have your owners and municipality, which is just pretty much whoever you're dealing with. It'll be populated by a drop-down bar based off the division you're in. And then you'll manually input your let date and the advertisement length. If you have any one-off projects that take longer than usual, you can change that. But in Division 10, we're just standard using 28 days to generate some type of timeline. And then you'll see the snippet to the right. That's what the actual block will look like on the spreadsheet. It's going to generate a few milestones or like action dates that we provide to our consultants when they're doing the designing. The first one's going to be start exhibit review. That's going to be that time frame that Bo referred to when we need your exhibit plans, your agreement plans finalized. That'll be when we start reviewing them. And right now we just block out 45 days. That's what works best for us in 10. It gives us plenty of time for, back and forth. This is not a constructability review. This is pure agreement plans, making sure your plans match your estimates and your special provisions all check out. The second one will be the start of your agreement. That's after we finish the review, and that's the date we send it to Raleigh with Tim McHugh. He'll draft the agreement, and in the spreadsheet we give him, I believe, a week to draft that. Next one's going to be the agreement sent to owner. That's the date you're actually going to send it to the municipality, because as you saw on the slide before, if you miss that cutoff, it's going to delay your project. So you want to accurately track that date and make sure it hits where you want. The agreement board date is just to make sure that the funding for the UCA is approved, and most of the time the local agreements group will take care of that, whoever's drafting the agreement, but it never hurts to double check. Owner municipality board date, it's going to go off of the date you send it to the owner, but again, we needed to get that date back, and we'll get that date back on the date that the agreement will run on a council meeting. And then from there, we get our next point, partially executed agreement, which is when they're gonna sign it. So that's the date when we want to at least be there by PS&E, but fully executed generally takes maybe a week. I haven't had one take longer than a week. They're pretty quick about that. And then the last bullet point is going to be your project board date. And that's just making sure that the agreement will run for construction authorization with the whole project as a whole package, and all the information is there if there's any questions. So the results of this is, obviously in our spreadsheet, everything is programmed. You don't have to do anything except for choose the owner you have and put in a let date and the advertisement date. So like I said, that timeline on the front end that you had to do, it took 10, 20 minutes per project. I myself, having 30 or 40 of them, you can't do that. It's not quicker. It was actually quicker to make this spreadsheet than it was to do it. So you just, you can get it, as quick as you can put it in. And if it's not meeting your schedule, then you can then use the spreadsheet to input new let dates to find what schedule change request is needed for your project. And as you see to the right, we do have the PS&E cutoff dates forecasted for the DDRLs. So that is on the spreadsheet, and it is programmed to be conditionally formatted. That cell, if it does not beat your PS&E cutoff, it will flash red. And if you're good, it'll just show green. So that way there's no question there. The big thing is this will assist in utility coordination. This can be used by DOT personnel, private firms, project managers. We've been sending snippets of this to our project managers just so they know. We send it to the designers because Charlotte uses external, designers. So, we give them something to shoot for. We give them a date that we need plans. It's a lot more, you don't have to stay on top of it. It's you provided your cutoff date, and that's what they're going to have to hit. And then, like I said, it will assist in schedule changes because when we first found this or first made this, we had about 3 projects that were behind the gun, and we were able to catch it before it hit, I I guess it was already on the 12-month let list, but, you know, before we got close enough to let to really make important people mad, we were able to catch it. So it still didn't look good, but big thing is we didn't get to the last minute and then end up delaying it a long time. Here are some examples. This is the snippet I'm referring to that we provide our project managers, and I just used a blanket one that I guess dealt with last, and you'll see the title block U5761, and for this exact example, we're dealing with Charlotte Water. So you'll see our let date is 11/17/26, and I need your agreement plans, your exhibit plans in January. So that kind of tells you your large time frame that Bo was referring to. We need them sooner than you think because it depends on your owner. You'll see with the city of Albemarle, you know, you have 2 more months there to get us your agreement or your exhibit plans. So it's just a huge variation in timelines. And as I said, if you tried to do this without a spreadsheet, you would just end up, I mean, you could take a whole day and maybe do every project you have, but it's far easier just to punch in a let date. So yeah, this is something that we've been putting resources into. We have about 3 divisions completed, 10, 13, and 14. I anticipate having everything completed by most likely the end of the year, and then we'll have to do some programming and have something ready to put out. And again, if you can provide a contact for either your utility engineer or someone in your division that can assist, you'll know the contacts better. But some municipalities are not being responsive, so that's the only issue. But yeah, that's it. But I really appreciate the input from Value Management and the Utilities Unit in this resource. And like I said, hopefully we'll have something by the end of the year ready to, I guess, debut. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Adam. And I'd like to say Adam and Division 10 have this subscription by the end of the year. You can buy it at a reduced price through today. It's help yourself. But no, Don, raise your hand here. So Don in our central office is one of our regional engineers, and he and his team have taken this tool that Adam put together, and you're programming it out for multiple utility companies and municipalities, right? Kind of building it across the whole platform, right? So it's a work in progress. You're going to have it done by the end of the week? Is that what I heard? Something like that? By Friday. You're not sure which Friday, but by Friday, right? So, but no, great presentation, Adam. So next up is Mr. Larry Sanders, our state encroachments engineer. Larry is going to share some updates and initiatives that our utility encroachments team have been working on. So good morning, Larry.
Good morning. It's just space bar? Down button?
Yeah.
Down button, okay. It's good to see everybody here this morning. So far as encroachments are concerned, as a department, we know we deal with them. And as a state encroachments engineer, I enjoy my job. And when it comes to our projects, we by general statute, we have to have encroachments to allow them in a right-of-way. And I like to consider my job as job security for our project personnel, because once we allow an encroachment into the right-of-way, oftentimes that leads to a conflict down the road. So I like to think of it as I'm creating job security for a lot of the people in the room here. Right? So some updates on our encroachments, on the encroachment process. The normal process gets handled through our district engineers' offices, and most of you know, 95% of encroachments get handled at the district office level. This year, I think we're on track for around 15,000 across the state. But the ones that don't get handled strictly by the district offices requires a different permitting process, and some of those require, because they're impacted in one of our projects, whether it's division managed project, any type of a project that we have. So that's one of the things that triggers a different process for that approval. The other thing is if it's in controlled access right-of-way, by policy, it's supposed to come to Raleigh. That's another thing that triggers that process. So I'm not here to talk about the main process in general, but how it impacts our projects. For the district offices, one of the things that we have asked them to do and built into the encroachments portal, when the portal came online back in 2017 following a legislative request to have electronic permitting, and so that's what precipitated our online permitting process that currently exists. And so when that came out, it wasn't really geared towards our project process at all. It was really geared towards our district processes in handling the 95%. As time has progressed, that has allowed for different people to figure out different ways to use this tool. And so some of our, not only district offices, but some of our project personnel, when they got involved in the division offices, have said, oh, we can handle our non-reimbursable agreements through this process, because it was our utility agreements, the 16.1 and the 16.2 agreement forms for utilities, and they started using the permits portal for that, which it was never intended for that process. Well, that's water under the bridge. So some divisions have done that. That's fine. And so we've supported that process, but it's not been consistent. Not all divisions have done that. And so there's some inconsistencies that we own in the department when it comes to encroachments and what the portal was designed for versus how it's actually being used. So that brings me to this point of where when projects, so when an encroachment comes into the portal, by default it goes to the district office, and so the district has the responsibility of picking it up and to screen it to identify if it's within a project or not. And sometimes the plans that get submitted are directly associated with a project because somebody told an engineering firm to do that. So it's going to the district office. District says, why do I have this? And so we had some built-in some programming to say, okay, we're going to transfer it from the district office over to the division utility personnel. Well, in doing that, they didn't have some good tools, the district offices. So a couple of years ago, we had some GIS mapping put into the portal to require mapping to be a part of the approval process. And also with that, some layers that were put into the mapping resource for our district offices are several layers that identify our project limits. So before we relied on the STIP map, which was just lines and points. And that wasn't sufficient, especially when it came to the points, like our rail projects or spot safety projects, where it just showed up as a dot. It didn't show the extent of our project. So some of our interchanges, might go a mile or two down each leg of an interchange, but it showed us up as a dot. And so if a utility was coming across an interstate, half a mile away, it didn't show up as a conflict. So we've gone back and added some of the layers from the ROMS project into the utility mapping or into the encroachment mapping, so that anybody that has access to the permits portal can go in and turn on those layers, and you can see exactly all the projects that are potential conflict. And that was supposed to be a trigger for our district offices to reach out to our project personnel, our division personnel, Central Utilities office, whoever's managing that project, to be able to ask questions. Hey, is this a problem? Do we need to mitigate this? Is the project too far out in the future? We don't have any plans on it yet. Just to find out, to have that conversation, to find out who needs to handle this. And if we don't have enough plans on it, then it would come back to the respective office, and then it can get either permitted because there was no conflict, or it could get transferred to the other office because there is a conflict and needs to be worked into the project process. So the way for screening for projects, the major STIP projects, locally administered projects, and the maintenance projects have all been there. Why? We all know is the reason, because we don't want to entertain delay claims. And so that's the big motivation of why it's important for our district personnel to do that screening process. So I don't know if generally district personnel don't come to this conference, because this is a construction-related conference, not a maintenance-type conference. So for the project personnel that are in the room here today, please have conversations with your local district offices to say, if you're not doing this, please do so. Because I have heard that some get through the process, some encroachments get approved, only later find out that they didn't screen properly, and they issued a permit, an encroachment, within the limits of a project, and now there's a conflict. So please have conversations. That's not something that's built into the process right now to automatically make them do that. So please have those conversations with the local district offices. For the local administrative projects, please contact the local the LAP personnel, LAP project personnel. The maintenance projects, contact your division maintenance personnel, and the SIP projects, generally the utility project personnel. Whether that's the division utility personnel, if it's a division managed project, or the central utilities office, our office, if it's a centrally managed project. One other comment there I'd like to highlight, when there's a next action in the encroachments portal. The next action determines what office is reviewing it and where it's at in the process. A new one was just recently added. So in the past, there was one called Central Utilities. When that was selected by the district or the division, by any personnel really, that means it came to my office, and then my office would pick it up and handle the review from that process, from that point. So we would handle it for any type of reason, whether we need to get other special units to review it, or if we had to ask our project personnel, or some combination of both. So a new one was introduced recently for the Central Utilities project personnel for the express purpose of differentiating between the staff in the encroachments office, in other words, the people that report under me, versus the rest of the project personnel in the utilities unit, because there was no distinction when that was selected. So there's not been something built into the process to identify if you select Central Utilities projects. So if the division knows that it's going to be a centrally managed project, right now the request is do not change it to the Central Utilities project. Just keep it at the central encroachments. And that way it'll still come to my office. We will contact the project personnel and move forward with that process accordingly. So the next action in the portal, for those of you that are familiar with it, you would already have seen this before. Something that was implemented recently when the division of utilities was selected. So by default, the district office should be sending stuff to the division utility personnel first and not to the central office, for the opportunity for the division to be able to comment on it. And if the division utilities project personnel determines that it needs to come to Raleigh, then that personnel should send it on to us. But what's happened when the division utilities next action has been selected? A recent implementation that we got implemented with our IT department is when that is selected, an email gets sent to the division utilities personnel automatically to notify them. Before, that didn't happen. So it relied on the district office directly contacting the division utility personnel to say, hey, can you look at this encroachment? Otherwise, there were no notifications. And so when it gets transferred to the division utility personnel, the division can decide on if they can handle the process or not and approve it, or send it back to the district office. So the idea, we didn't want the district offices to send everything to Raleigh just for them to us to turn around, because we're not managing a division managed project, for us to turn around and send it back to the division. So the idea was to bypass, don't send it to Raleigh until it needs to come to Raleigh, until it's been determined that it is needs to be handled by the Raleigh office. The next action for Central Utilities, that's the one where it comes to my office. And in so doing, the folks the boots on the ground people that are doing this on a regular basis know this, but there's a data field called the DOT reviewer. Please update that person, because the person that's identified as that in that data field, that gives information to the customer, whoever that is, whatever utility X, Y, or Z. That gives them a person to contact with their email address and their phone number. So that's helpful for the customer. And then this is the new one that got added recently, the Central Utilities Projects. And the emails are not sent to the email address on file for the Central Utilities Project personnel. That's one thing I did want to point out. So if that is ever selected, this still relies on that personal direct contact. Say, okay, if it's going to be in Division 3, then send it to somebody in Bo's office. Or if it's going to be in Division 12, send it to somebody in Amy's office. So somebody in those has to be contacted directly when that is selected. But so if you do happen to do that and don't do what I've requested, please make sure it's followed up with an email to make sure that staff knows, hey, this encroachment needs some review by your office, because they're not notified automatically. And then at that point, that project, the project personnel can handle that review or send it back to you saying, no, it's not in the limits of our project. And again, update the DOT reviewer. We're still waiting on some requests to get the encroachment submission user guide updated, and that's we're waiting on IT department with support, and I know they've got a backlog of a number of issues. So the most recent revision was issued back in July of last year. A number of things have been implemented, like the new stages in the next action. And there's been a few other minor things that have happened along the way. That stuff is not reflected in our user manual. So I'm sharing this information today for most of you that may not have known before. I think that's it.
Great presentation, Larry. We appreciate what you and your team are doing. Y'all stay busy, for sure. So yeah, we touched rather briefly on a number of different things we're working on. We're doing pretty good on time, so I wanted to just share a couple other things that we have going on. Not necessarily on this slide, but I'll kind of point back to what Larry was just talking about. So Larry and Ben, raise your hand, Ben, our staff engineer in the unit. So they have a team working together to update. We have how many different encroachments, Larry? At least one, right? That y'all are working to up provisions, and you and John Stewart are working to get all kinds of stuff updated.
Agreement form?
Yeah.
There's 13 agreement forms.
13 that have last been touched in last week sometime, or 1970. Yeah. So they're working to go through all of those terms and conditions and those agreement forms, get the language current, reference current rules and regs and things like that. Something else that we have initiated are project pipeline meetings. So how many in this room have attended a project pipeline meeting? Boy, you all are all missing out. We'll have to make sure you all get on the list. So back in June, we set up 4 meetings across the state. We covered them in about 2 weeks. Basically went from the coast to the mountains, and we invited all of the utility companies that operate in those regions, and we shared with them what is coming down our DOT pipeline. We did not talk about projects that are in construction. We did not talk about projects that are in project development. We talked about projects that are going to come into their view maybe in the next 12 months or so, right? Now, obviously, high-level data, right? We're all working off a STIP that is ever evolving. We're actually January. We're expecting the 2635 STIP to be published and updated. But it was an opportunity to let the utility companies understand, what is coming towards them, what are the dates on these, what are the magnitude of these projects, and for them to, ask questions to us, right? So kudos, our project development project managers were at those meetings, our division utility staff, some of our, division leadership were able to make it. So, appreciate that support. Utility companies loved it. They're looking at it, right? When you're in a kickoff meeting, you're talking about, when do you need plans turned in? When do you need PUEs? When do you need, whatever it is for plan development? These meetings allow them to understand, okay, when do they need to go to their supervisors to talk about, getting more staff added to their team or budget added to their program, right? So they can help stay on track. So we were hoping to have done another round of pipeline meetings before the end of this year, but as I mentioned, we're working to update our STIP, so it's probably going to be February, I'm guessing, February, March of next year, and we'll do another round pipeline meetings. We are constantly in contact with our utility partners. We've got one of the things we're working in the unit is to get our processes, pen on paper, repeatable process for success. But a whole additional part of being successful in utilities involves relationships with our utility company partners, right? So we spend time out meeting with them, different events or just one-on-one business meetings or whatever they may be. Helping or trying to understand, what hurts them. What are the pain points with them? How can we help their process? In addition, sharing with them, where is it hurting us, and how can they help us? How can we mutually work together? There were some comments made yesterday. I know Division 7 had a great presentation, and Chris and Brian and David and Wright. And then also there was a meeting on Gordon Road, Jamie and Katie. They were sharing stories of where utility coordination worked well, right? And if you look at the slides or the information contained in those presentations, they both involved collaborating with the utility companies, making them a partner, right? Not a stakeholder. I hate that. It's so sterile. You're a stakeholder. Right, bring them into the room, let them, hear what they have to say, help them understand the project, understand their challenges, and make them, be part of the conversation. And those projects we were talking about yesterday that were successful, that was going on. So kudos to you all on that. Another thing that we have going on, I think I saw Tim Bertacco, you in the room? I think I saw you come. There he is. Tim's in our utilities unit. So Tim leads up our alternative delivery and special projects section. So, here at North Carolina DOT, we definitely embrace alternative delivery. And there's a phone call from the governor right now with the next project. But, so we want to do our part to help support alternative delivery. So we're created a more established process for staying out in front of projects. One of the big milestones now is at minimum 2 years before a project is to be advertised, we're making sure that we're getting in front of the utility companies so they can understand that it's coming, it's going to be alternative delivery, it's not going to be bid build, right? It's a whole different arena. So there again, just sharing information. Some of you, or probably many of you, worked on our 540 projects. So we had early coordination on I-540 where we were doing early, or advanced right-of-way acquisition, and in some instances, some utility work on the big long lead transmission. So things like that, right, that help project delivery on those big, heavy, complex projects. Your refinements to URA language. So when I started here about 11 months ago, I know Larry and Bo and Amy and others, they have their own little book going on the side, right? So here's the URA, and here's everything that we need to update, right? Because similar to the PDN, right, that's been out for a couple years, and we've had an opportunity to kick the tires, see how it's working. The UAM is, our current version is fairly new. So we are, firsthand, real life, seeing opportunities where it can be improved. So we are working to get some updates out. I'm not going to get too heavy involved into what are some items that we are going to change. They're still being vetted with legal, so I don't want to start anything up here. But at the end of the day, it's items to help the department, help us with efficiency, manage risk, manage liability, right, and deliver better products, right? It being fiscally responsible that yield a 3D deliverable. How about all that wrapped into one, right? But yeah, those are some high-level things that we have going on. We would love to take some questions from the audience. We have we got a couple minutes, right? Doing pretty good, Wendy? All right, any questions, comments, complaints? Come on now, I know it's early. right. Well, I will say one more thing is Chris Smitherman in the room? Is he here? Yeah, there he is. All right. I like what you said yesterday. As you all work to navigate throughout the day today and go to your different sessions, be thinking about what you can do to help utilities. Okay? I love it. Good job, Chris. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, utilities team, for sharing this morning, and I can tell you're trying to win folks over by letting them get to the break first. The break will be in the room next door. We're going to start the next sessions promptly at 10:15. I'll put the QR code for your PDHs in case folks got in here a little late. I'll put it up on the screen for you. And I know since we've gone digital with the agenda, I'll quickly share what the next sessions are before you guys head out next door. This room will have communication conundrums and the road to correcting and connecting. I knew I wouldn't get that right the first time. Room 3 is the next gen aerial surveying and mapping. Room 6 is submitting a complete PS&E package. Room 7, progress and promise, an update on express design traffic evaluations. And room 8, cool projects, ferry and rail. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you at 10:15.
Appreciate the shout out.